We want to rule our country.
A fly whisk, a walking stick, and a well-decorated African hat were some of his trademarks. The man of average height kept a bushy beard and tidily brushed his long, kinky hair backwards. Yet he was many things. A former carpenter, a one-time municipal water meter reader, and before that, a store clerk. This is part of the profile of Kamau wa Muigai, who later became Johnson Kamau, and more consequentially, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta.
Brothers, I think I have spoken enough in this language. It is not my wish that I should be speaking to you in a foreign, and for that matter, in colonialistic language.
And you, Mzee, had very strong eyes.
And for the most part of a 14-year period, that is the sharp glare with which Jomo Kenyatta kept our nation's affairs on check as Kenya's founding father, first president, and leader of its first black-dominated government. It was to a shaken, relatively young, independent nation that the news was announced on the morning of August 22, 1978, that Kenyatta's watchful gaze had dimmed forever.
That particular day, early in the morning, I got communication from Mombasa that Mzee is no longer with us.
I had gone to the post office to check my early mail. Now, outside the post office, where I had parked my car, somebody came and wrote a small chit and put it on my wipers of the car and said in Kikuyu, it goes, the fig tree has fallen in Mombasa. Mogumo is fig tree. To me, it was just a guesswork. I said, Mogumo? Then I remembered the Mogumo in the Kikuyu, when we talk about Mogumo falling in Mombasa, this must be something to do with the Jomo.
The 21st of August 1978, I rang him because I wanted to see him. Then I was told he's meeting with the ambassadors, but I told them to ask him to ring me when he comes. And sure enough, on the same day at about 2:30, he rang me. And I told him I wanted to see him the next day, which was now the 22nd August 78. And for the first time, we argued, or he argued with me, because he said, no, come now. He insisted, come. And then I kept on explaining. I said, look, let me come the next day, please. You know what he said to me? He said, shauri yako. And that was his last word to me.
There was a total silence in many places. Nobody had told people to be silent or to keep quiet. But there was assumption all over, A, that it was not possible Kenyatta can die, or had died for that matter. They thought it was a taboo to talk about the old man dying. So even if you told people that has happened, they didn't want to listen, and those who listened didn't want to respond.
Kenyatta's death was our way out of, into freedom, out of prison into freedom. And you can't imagine how happy we felt when we got the news that he had died.
The coastal city of Mombasa, Kenya's second largest city, was a favorite holiday destination for Kenyatta. Countless times he retreated to this city on what the official presidential press service often inaccurately referred to as a working holiday. On the morning that he passed on peacefully in his sleep in Mombasa, Simon Mwangi Wambogo was the police officer on duty at the communication operation room at the police headquarters in Nairobi.
I got another call from Mombasa, either from Mahehu or from Matthew. And this one required me to dispatch one Air Force Caribou. And that should be flown by none other but the Air Force commander, Kanogi Churu then. We were connected with Churu with a radio telephone to his house. So I also called him. And the first thing he asked me, because Churu was once my boss, he asked me, what is your rank, by the way? I said, I'm an inspector. Since when did the inspectors give orders to colonels? He said, sir, I'm not ordering you, I'm saying, I'm relaying a message from State House, Mombasa. The Caribou must fly to Mombasa, and you should be the pilot. At around 6:30, I got another call, this time from Mahehu, from Hinga. And he says, can you order all the provinces to lower the national flag and the police flag half-mast? And I did that. For me, it's just to call every province. And when I call the PPU in each province, what he does down there, it was his business. So that was done. And then I was beginning to receive calls now from the State House. Kareidi was already there. And he says, cabinet meeting should be due any time. It should be there like now, and I want the cabinet here.
Simeon Nyachai was at the time the provincial commissioner in charge of Central Province, that includes Gatundu, the native home of the late president.
The main purpose of giving me the message first was to ensure that all the government machinery in Central Province were given that information very quietly, because the moment the news came out through the media, a lot of people in Central Province will be asking questions, what has happened and that kind of thing.
But the one person we hadn't found is the Vice President, Daniel Moi. And when I became completely frustrated, it became necessary for me to talk to the province. They didn't know how to reach him. I went down to the OCPD Baringo, and OCPD Baringo could not raise him. And we were not able to raise him even using the radio system in his escort vehicles. When the OCPD went to physically look for him, at about 8:30, he was told that Moi had left with his convoy of security detail, heading outwards instead of coming to Nairobi. Because Mahehu had informed me that he had talked to Moi himself and had informed him that the president has died. So when OCPD told me that, I told him, follow the way he followed until you catch up with him and make him come to Nairobi, because it's the only reason why the cabinet meeting will not take place.
I drove to the Vice President's house. That was the Honorable Daniel Arap Moi. He had also arrived from Nakuru. I had a short discussion with him, and he was also waiting for various formalities to be arranged. While I was there, the commandant of the GSU came with, I think, almost a platoon of his people, and put up the tents around the home of the Vice President. This is just a security precaution that once the news comes out, you don't know the reaction of various people. And there was need now for the potential successor to be given adequate security.
Despite failing health and his advanced age, estimated at beyond 90 years at the time, the death of Jomo Kenyatta caught many Kenyans by surprise, including some key members of his powerful inner circle.
Previous day, I was to have 2 appointments in Nairobi. He said, now you can go. And then before I go, he was asking Mama Ngina, who is going to tell him to come and conduct those dances and songs to attend for me. But Mama Ngina told him that you have given Koinange permission to go over there. So that's all right. I called doctor and asked him, are things all right? All these things are perfect, all right. Do you like to come and stay in State House? Oh yes, it's all right, everything is all right. Then when we heard this shock, it was really unbearable shock. It is absolutely true that I personally feel the deepest grief in my heart.
For valid reasons, curious glances were directed at Kenyatta's inner circle, and subsequently, the mourning of Kenyatta's death went hand in hand with the anxiety over his impending succession. The last stages of Kenyatta's rule had been characterized by a vicious backroom jostling for political power, a scramble that sometimes spilled out into the open through various forms, the most prominent of all being the Change the Constitution movement, fronted by leaders of the then powerful tribal alliance GEMA, the acronym for the Gikuyu, Embu and Meru Association. Njenga Karume was both GEMA chairman and member of the Change the Constitution movement.
Mimi nilipoona hii niliona katiba vile inasema, hata tukazungumza tukiwa Ulaya kwa Geneva na Keka, nikamwambia unajua katiba inasema nini? Nikamwambia katiba, mimi nilikuwa naona sasa katiba ya nchi kama hii kusimamiwa na mtu mmoja kama Njenga Karume au mwingine, hadi president akifa au pengine awe mmoja hawezi kufanya kazi, automatic for 90 days vice president is the acting president. Akiwa hata sio Moi, akiwa ni mtu baya kabisa wa kuharibu nchi, si ataharibu. Ndio tulikuwa tunasema hii katiba to change, to amend.
Well, one of the things that I did first of all is to kill it by saying any threat to the life of the president, or imagine that the president is sick or is going to die, that's treason.
Hata nilimuuliza Jojo, tulikutana State House, nikamuuliza, akanibeba na gari yake tukienda town, nikamuuliza kinichauri, hii treason inasema tustakiwe na treason, ni mahali gani tumesema tunataka kupindua serikali au kufanya ni mahali gani? Kaniambia katiba, si unajua kulingana na katiba, according to the law, imagine, hata kuimagine kifo cha president, hiyo ni treason. Nikamwambia sisi tumeimagine wapi? Akaniambia miaka hiyo yote wakati Kenyatta alikuwa na nguvu za ugani hamkufikiria kuchange katiba. Sasa mnaona sasa anakuwa mmoja ndio mnaanza hiyo ni fikira zenu ndio mtaenda treason ya hiyo kwanza, imagination hiyo yetu. Kwa hivyo hiyo George alitutisha na unajua Kenyatta angekubali tustakiwe.
But the rapid pace of events on August 22nd appeared to conspire against whatever other schemes. On the same day, Vice President Daniel Arap Moi was sworn in as acting president, and he immediately embarked on his first task, the state funeral of his predecessor, Jomo Kenyatta.
My dear friends and fellow Wananchi, what fitting tribute can we pay the man who was a father to us all? How can we adequately express the grief that is deep in our hearts? The cruel hand of death has silenced a friend, a loving father, a gallant fighter, a great statesman. This was Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. May the Almighty God rest his soul in eternal peace.
I do not think that Mzee actually had that idea that he could have somebody in mind who would take over from him. I don't think that idea was being nursed in his mind.
He knew what the Constitution said, that if anything happened to him, then the vice president would take over. And Kenyatta was very much behind the Constitution. He never played with the Constitution. And for that, I think he was satisfied with the Moi position as a vice president.
Throughout the period, Honorable Moi was the vice president. He demonstrated very strong loyalty to Mzee. And he carried out what he expected Mzee would want him to do. So he was quite loyal, and Mzee trusted him.
One may say anything about Moi, but I have never heard Moi, even when he became president for 24 years, I have never heard Moi say anything bad against Kenyatta, even today. So that loyalty, I think Moi's mind is that Kenyatta is somewhere in Gatumbi, and he respects him as his boss.
As it would later turn out, Moi's reverence for Jomo Kenyatta ran through all those who came into direct contact with the old man. Right from the time he emerged to take a place in the freedom struggle, Kenyatta was widely regarded with both fear and respect.
He was literally a mythical figure, larger than life. He was this figure whom I always dreamt of meeting.
When he called to State House gate, I would have water in my stomach. He has called me in a friendly way, but I'm worried about this man, what he may turn out, what he may tell me. And that water would not disappear until I have left the gate. Kenyatta was not a single person. He had that personality.
He was a born, intelligent man. He did not require education. There are those people who are born with that kind of intelligence. Some people like to call it even wisdom. Probably we might combine the two. He had that. And that enabled him to work secretly in many things.
His name was in the songs that were sung everywhere. Okay, so you grew up hearing these songs, the military songs of the Mama, the question of education. So you knew that he was this person who had gone to England to go and get education and bring it back to the country. He was this figure who had gone to England to fight for our land.
As president for 14 years, The image of Jomo Kenyatta was that of a towering yet relaxed figure, a man totally in charge but fully at ease with the system he headed. It is a style that was evidently popular among those who served under him, including current President Mwai Kibaki, Kenyatta's one-time finance minister.
I have at many times remembered a time when soon after independence of this country, those of us that were given responsibility in various departments by the founder of this nation, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, whom we all of us remember very fondly. Because when he gave you a job, you got a job. And there was no interference, and he would not keep ringing your juniors at night. And he would not doubt that you are doing what he gave you to do.
Mzee had what I would call in his own mind a system of command. A week would not go without Mzee ringing me up at least twice in the evenings to find out how things are in the province. And I came to know that he was doing the same with my colleagues in other provinces.
He never liked gossip. If you gossip against me to Kenyatta, Kenyatta would call me and face you, say, what did you tell me about this man? And that way he would kill it.
One day I was arrested near this is what you call Koja Mosque. I was just walking the street as usual. So the 99 car stops, saying, Mzee Chikuku, sir, you are wanted State House by the president. But he didn't ring me, he said, but he asked us to look for you and take you there. So I got into the 99 car and so driven to State House.
Kenyatta, ukienda useme maneno yangu huko, hata yangu ilisemwa akaita huyo mtu huko Gatunu na mimi nikaitwa. Kaambia hilo liniambia Ajeka Karume rudia leo. Kaanza kusema Mzee ni watu wacha nyamaza. Watu gani unasema tu watu walikuwa nasema ni ile uliniambia mimi mwenyewe.
They were having lunch. So I found Kenyatta at the head of the table. Next was Moi. Next Moi, Charles Njonjo. Next Charles Njonjo, G.K. Karifi. And then the bodyguard. But this seat on the left of the president was vacant. So when I came, he said, bana the kuku, karibu, karibu. Karia kiti. Data dhubu. Soup was brought. He took. Now, protocol never took day. It should have been after he has taken soup, it should go to Moi, then that way, then me. He took the thing like, karibu, kunywa thubu, unapata nguvu. So I chotted mine, then the ball went the other side. Bwana the kuku. Akasungwa. He knew a bit of Luya. Akasungwa means, what is the news? Sema, Amalai. Oh, just that is good news. Watu wa Butere wanasema nini? Now, I didn't know why I was called. He was just engaging in discussion. So that time the fish had been brought, we were eating. Watu wa Butere wanasema nini? And I came out innocently. I said, wanasema hii serikali ya Kenyatta ni serikali ya hongo. Ati wanasema serikali ya Kenyatta ni serikali ya hongo. Ndio mtukufu rais. Kwa nini? Kwa sababu chief alikamatwa akichukua soya 10 shillings. Alikamatwa na superintendent wa Kakamega police. Red-handed, it was police money which was treated. So he handcuffed him, took him to Kakamega. After 2 weeks, he was returned. He was again a chief in the office. So watu wanasema hii serikali ya Kenyatta, huyu alikamatwa na hongo, tena anarudi kuendelea na kazi. Hii serikali ya Kenyatta ni serikali ya hongo. Bwana Njonjo, ulipata hii maneno? Njonjo said yes. Ulifanya nini? Njonjo said we got the case, but there was a technicality. We couldn't quite get the conviction. So Kenyatta kept quiet. And was becoming angry. I could see his face changing. Karithi, to the fries, kwenda uko afisi yangu, pigia simu bwana Boit. Boit was the PC Western. Ambia Boit kwamba ile shifu ya Marama, bwana Vikuku anaitwa nani? Anaitwa Jared Osora. Ile shifu ya Marama, Jared Osora amefutwa kazi. Karithi took off his napkin and went to the office. From that time, Kenyatta never finished his speech. Nyama ikaletwa, anaendelea. He kept quiet. He never talked again.
He was angry?
Very angry. After some time, Karithi comes back. He was the chief secretary. Bwana Karithi, ulipata Boit? Ndio mtukufu rais. Ulimwambia nini? Nilimwambia umesema ile chief ya Marama, Jared Osora, amefutwa kazi. Bwana Njonjo, iko technicality ingine? Njonjo never replied. He asked, I'm asking you, iko technicality ingine? Akasema hapana. Basi wewe bwana Vikuku, huyu Njonjo alikuwa ananiambia wewe unatembea kila mahali, unasema serikali ya Kenyatta ni serikali ya hongo, na mimi sikukuambia nimekuitia nini. Wewe uliniambia yale yaliyofanyika, na huyu anasema habari ya technicality. Kama mambo kama hii lazima kuchukua hatua.
I remember once when I was building Lillian Towers, I submitted the drawings to the Nairobi City Council for approval, and they would not approve them. Then the reason was there was a 1954 bylaw which said because of Central Police Station you could not build anything beyond 6 floors. Now 6 floors for Lillian Towers, it was not going to be economical. I wanted to go to 16th floor, but they would not hear of it. They said no. So I went to Kenyatta. And I explained to Kenyatta the problem. Then Kenyatta rang Goba, and he said, Goba, if somebody wants to build a building to reach heaven, what is your problem? And then Goba, of course, has no answer. What is your problem? So he was told. Then Mzee asked me, what is it that you want from them? I said, I want an approval. They have a stamp, which they normally stamp on the drawings. So Gopa was told, let's meet in State House. I had met him in Gatodu. Let's meet in State House, and you come with that approval stamp. He came, approved the drawings. I got the drawings. Then Kenyatta turned around and said to Gopa, you know what to do. And if you have a problem with anybody, I'm here.
He made a remark which sent my mind spinning. I laughed, but I didn't comment. He said, wewe ni Mwafrika na wewe ni kijana. Kijana wakati wanatengenezea wazee supu, wao hapana onja. Sasa kama umekushafanya hii kazi yote ya kusaidia watu kuchukua mashamba, wewe huwezi kuonja na kashamba.
Because I told him that there is no way you can appoint Mzee or excuse him from standing in parliament, because there is the law. I mean, he says he's disqualified. So he said, I want this review. If I can exempt somebody, if I can get somebody who is sentenced to death and a commute sentence to life, why can't I excuse Mzee? So we had to amend the constitution so that Mzee can stand as a member of parliament.
But Kenyatta's way of doing things did not always attract approval. His critics saw him in the same light as most of Africa's post-independence leaders who replaced colonialism with a new breed of dictatorship rested on a pile of broken pre-independence promises.
For me, I had no doubt in my mind that what we had was a dictatorship, and it is not what Uhuru was meant to be.
The treatment of Mao, for instance, after independence, was not really good. It's as if we ignored the people who were in the forest and the mountains. Okay. We began to behave and act as if it's not they who fought in the mountains and sacrificed. We began to talk as if it is the educated nationalists who somehow magically brought about independence.
Kenyatta used the same colonial laws that jailed him to jail John Keane without trial. I was jailed.
Detention of critics aside, the real turning point for the image of the Kenyatta years came when the culture of political assassinations crept onto the nation's way of life so early, then several times after, during his rule. Pio Gama Pinto, a member of parliament of Asian extraction, was assassinated in 1965, hardly 2 years after independence. Then came the elimination of Kenyatta's presumed trusted lieutenant, Thomas Joseph Odhiambo Mboya, or simply Tom Mboya. Mboya was gunned down in broad daylight on Nairobi's Moi Avenue as he walked out of a chemist. Mboya's convicted killer, Nahashon Isaac Njenga Njoroge, famously asked, "Why don't you go for the big man?" To this day, the jury is still out on who the big man in reference was.
How can you interpret the big man? Because there are so many big men, and you might go up the staircase and somebody say, no, there's a bigger man there. And everybody will be saying the same.
There was no way of stopping Tom from ever becoming the president of this country. And the only way to stop him, instead of thanking him, they gave him 3 bullets in his chest at lunchtime to get rid of him.
Mboya was not afraid to Kenyatta. He was not afraid to Kenyatta. He was very loyal to Kenyatta. He was working for Kenyatta. And at no time in my view did Mboya try to undermine Kenyatta. He may have had his ambition, like all of us. But Tom was very, very loyal to Kenyatta.
When Tom was assassinated, Mzee definitely, I can tell you, he was very upset. He was very upset. And you know, these are some of things he never really wanted to see in this country. Mzee had a philosophy that if you disagree with me, let us argue it out. He used to use a phrase, "Wanaume ni kuonana." I remember that phrase.
Mboya's assassination immediately poisoned ethnic relations between the Luo tribe and President Kenyatta's Kikuyu community. Resentment among the Luos ended in street battles with the police as frustration mounted over the killing of one of Kenya's most gifted political leaders. And it was only a matter of time before the assassination rattled one of Kenya's most stabilizing political friendships, that of Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. 3 months after the assassination of Tom Mboya, a visit to Kisumu by President Kenyatta ended in violence, death, and an ugly verbal exchange between Kenyatta and Oginga.
Mimi ningesema kama si heshima ya urafiki wetu na wewe Odinga, mimi ningesema tia nguvuni leo. Waangalie ni nani anatawala nchi hii, kama ni KANU au ni vinyangarika wengine wanatawala nchi hii. Lakini mimi nasema kwamba kama hawa watu wako wachafu, kama wakitoa nyokonyoko, sisi tutawaonyesha kwamba Kenya iko na serikali yake. Sababu hata ndugu yangu mwenyewe, kile nilikupenda wewe,
Sikupenda ndugu yangu kama wewe.
I only saw him upset one time when we had that incident in Kisumu. He expressed his unhappiness in a very strong language in Kisumu, where the incident took place. After that, Mzee never talked about it again. No.
He had a very soft heart for Jaramogi. Not at the expenses of Boya, but they were like his children.
Up to the time Mzee passed on, I never heard him say anything adverse about Jaramogi.
Seeing them with Odinga and the way they were interacting, it was very, very powerful, for me. So I was very sad when they fell out, years later.
The Kisumu incident in 1969 virtually ended the Kenyatta-Odinga warm relations. Kenyatta never stepped in the lakeside city again until his death, while Jaramogi was systematically consigned to the political wilderness. But political assassinations were not to take a long break. Josiah Mwangi Kariuki, or J.M. Kariuki as he was famously known, was murdered in 1975 under circumstances that heavily rendered suspect operatives within the Kenyatta administration.
The problem between Kenyatta and J.M. was a problem of people who wanted leadership, and they thought J.M. is growing too fast. He's becoming too popular. And then, before then, he was too close to Kenyatta. And somebody had to make sure that he separates J.M. from Kenyatta. And indeed he was.
There was even a song, Maheni Maro. That was actually an interpretation that here is water which we were drinking, that is supporting our government, and it has become bitter. I would tell him, say, this is what has been formulated as a song in the Central Province and so on. And it was a serious problem, very serious.
To say JM wanted to overthrow Kenyatta, JM wanted to take over from Kenyatta, there was no such a scheme. And if anybody knows it, then he's keeping it too secret for no apparent reason.
Mzee was very, very upset about this thing. And even his responses to my briefing, you could see that Mzee is very upset as to why this could have been done. Was treated as Mzee's son. He would get to Gatundu without security checking, he would get to State House without security checking.
But just in the same way he reacted during Tom Mboya's assassination, Kenyatta decided to tough things out, taking it a level higher by calmly inspecting an impromptu military parade and guard of honor mounted along present-day Moi Avenue in city center, Nairobi.
I think on the advice of the national security, they organized a guard of honor simply to demonstrate that the government is still in charge. That was all.
Kenyatta would not be shaken by anything. He was himself. It doesn't matter what happened. The life would have to go on. And he took decisions. And when he took decisions, he had a saying, he could not reverse himself. If he make a mistake, he had to live with it.
His legendary firmness was perhaps best illustrated by the almost expressionless face he occasionally wore alongside that deep and fierce gaze at sights beyond the horizon. But there were other unspoken yet visible symbols of Kenyatta's political power. The bakora, or walking stick, that as legend has it often came in handy, and the heavy leather jackets that clearly constituted his favorite wardrobe.
Kenyatta's bakora was like a handkerchief. How do you go without a handkerchief, even if you have no fever? You need it for rubbing sweat or something else. And this bakora, people misconceived the purpose of it being with Kenyatta all along.
I have no information from any direct quarter that Mzee at one time actually alikimbisha mtu or alirezi fimbo apige mtu.
But behind the mask of Kenyatta's political toughness was a fun-loving, free spirit with an insatiable appetite for traditional dances.
It was another way of relaxing him. You know, as a head of state, you have so many things coming to you, and you have so many people coming to see you.
Then there is what is perhaps the little-known side of Jomo Kenyatta. That is, a Jomo Kenyatta full of fear. Fear for aeroplanes and fear for lifts.
Kenyatta did not like flying, you know, out of the country. If he went out of the country, it was either by ship or on the road. Kenyatta also did not like going by lift. This is why you find even today in Harambee House, his office was in the second floor, so he could walk.
We flew the same plane with Jomo Kenyatta, the president. He said to me, I was almost his errand boy, and the moment turbulence, Kenyatta freezes to death. Nimemwambia Mzee, hii kitu tutafika land hapana jali. Again another turbulence, the man just gone completely.